Hey guys and gals, welcome back to Be Kind Rewind. I'm Joe Young, and I'll be breaking down this week's latest and greatest in the world of movies, movie news, and streaming. Last week, we got our first look at Jason Momoa as Lobo, our first teaser and full trailer for Travis Knight's Masters of the Universe. Netflix is positioning themselves to take over Hollywood, and not to mention a little thing called the Oscars. All that and more, let's get into it. Last week, we got our first real look at Lobo, played by Jason Momoa in DC Studios' Supergirl. DC Studios dropped a new teaser, an official image, and a short social announcement to let all of us know that not only is the movie going to give us more of the James Gunn era of DC, but also give us the most metal introduction to a DC character that we have ever seen. Jason Momoa is Lobo, not playing Lobo, is Lobo in every way. This movie stars Millie Alcock as Kara Zor-El, is based on the DC Comics Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, and is the second film in the rebooted DC universe following Superman. Supergirl is currently set to hit theaters on June 26th. Now, I cannot be more excited about this casting. This is the role Momoa has been talking about for years. He's been teasing it, hinting at it, openly wanting it, and we are finally seeing it on screen. And yeah, the look is awesome. The physicality, the attitude, the presence, it all just clicks immediately. You don't have to squint or imagine it. You see him and you go, yep, that's it. That's the guy that we have all been waiting for. This feels natural. It doesn't come across as stretched casting or a reinvention. It feels like the right guy getting the right role at the right time. And by the way, I'm loving what James Gunn is doing with the DC universe right now. The weakest thing so far might be the Peacemaker Season 2 finale, and even that isn't that bad. I still really liked what we got. Everything else, in my opinion, just slaps. Tone, casting, direction, it all feels intentional and connected. The latest Supergirl trailer peels back just enough and drops Lobo into the mix, and that alone adds a whole nother level of excitement. Now, keep in mind, this is just a trailer. We're not seeing full scenes or character arcs yet. This is about setting tone, confidence, and first impressions, and on that front, it absolutely nailed it. I'm so looking forward to seeing how Lobo fits into the story alongside Alcock's Supergirl, and I fully expect that dynamic to be absolutely over the top. The trailer did exactly what it needed to do and more. Now, I was already excited for this movie, but now I'm literally on the edge of my seat. Jason Momoa as Lobo just works, and the first look reinforces that the DCU is heading in a very strong direction. So I want to hear from you guys. What do you think of Momoa as Lobo? Does this teaser move the needle for you, or are you still waiting to see more? Whatever it is you're thinking, jump down in the comments and let me know your thoughts. The Masters of the Universe trailer dropped this week, giving us our first real look at the new big screen take on the property, and it's set to hit theaters on June 5th. We got our first real look at the tone, the world, and how seriously they're taking this thing. Now, honestly, this looks pretty stinking awesome. Right out the gate, the vibe on this one just works for me. The sets, the scale, the costumes, the authenticity, it all feels so right. Confident, but not trying too hard, and most importantly, it doesn't feel embarrassed by what it is. Now, we get just enough story to stay grounded, not a deep dive on mythology, not a highlight reel, just enough to say, we're here. This is what we're doing. Let's go. And for the first trailer, that's exactly what I wanted. What really stood out to me is how much they're leaning into the source material. This doesn't feel like a movie that's apologizing for what it is. It just is a He-Man movie. Oh, and Skeletor. We've got to talk about Skeletor. We don't hear Jared Leto speak in this trailer, but visually, come on. They nailed it. The look is dead on, the presence is there, it immediately reads as Skeletor without feeling cheap or overdone, and that reveal alone did a lot of heavy lifting for me. Again, remember guys, this is a trailer. It's doing its job. It's setting the tone. It's creating interest and getting a lot of people talking. The real test is going to be whether the story and the characters hold up once we're in this thing for 2 hours. But based on what I've seen so far, I'm pretty optimistic. I'm more excited today than I was yesterday. This trailer didn't oversell, it didn't over-explain, it just showed enough to make me want to see the full movie. Masters of the Universe is officially on my radar, and unless something goes sideways, I'll absolutely be there when it hits theaters in June. But what do you guys think? Have you watched the trailer? Interested? Not interested? Jump down in the comments and let me know your thoughts. The movie business is in the middle of a power shift right now, and Netflix is right at the center of it. Here's what's going on. Over the past few weeks, Netflix has made a series of moves that, taken individually, feel important. But when you step back and look at them together, they tell a much bigger story. Universal Picture movies are now starting to hit Netflix earlier than expected, well ahead of the original 2027 timeline. Sony has locked in a massive $7 billion plus global pay-one deal that keeps its theatrical movies landing on Netflix worldwide after their theater and home video runs. And at the same time, Netflix is actively pushing forward with its acquisition of Warner Bros. Discovery, a deal valued north of $80 billion, which has officially shifted to an all-cash offer. Now, on top of all that, Ted Sarandos has gone on record saying that if Netflix owns Warner Bros., it will maintain a 45-day theatrical window, and that Netflix wants to win the box office, not skip it. These aren't rumors, these aren't leaks, these are public, intentional moves, and they're all pointing in the same direction. Now, this isn't about Netflix getting more movies. This is about Netflix consolidating power. For years, the film industry tried to fragment itself, different studios, different streamers, different windows, different strategies, everyone racing toward building their own ecosystem. And for a while, it looked like that might actually work. But spoiler alert, it hasn't really worked out that way. Now we're watching the pendulum swing back. Netflix is positioning itself as the final destination for major studio films after their theatrical run. Not just domestically, globally. Universal, Sony, and potentially Warner Bros. All flowing into the same post-theatrical pipeline. That means Netflix isn't just influencing where movies land after theaters, it's influencing how studios think about theatrical releases in the first place. How long they run, how they're marketed, how their value is measured over time. This is no longer just a streaming story. This is an industry power story. I'll be honest, I'm impressed and a little stunned. This doesn't feel chaotic, it doesn't feel desperate, and it definitely doesn't feel like Netflix is throwing money around, hoping something sticks. This feels pretty calculated. Ted Sarandos is swinging a very big stick right now, and he's doing it with confidence. Netflix isn't reacting to the industry anymore, it's setting terms. The 45-day theatrical window is the clearest example of that. For years, Netflix was painted as anti-theater, as the company that wanted to skip the big screen entirely. This move flips that narrative on its head. Saying we'll keep theatrical and still win is a massive flex. Netflix is strong enough now to let theaters eat first and still dominate the back end. That's not something a company in a weak position does. And the Sony deal tells you something even more important. Studios trust Netflix. Sony could have chased Amazon. It could have tried to piece together regional deals. It didn't. It wrote a massive global deal with Netflix because Netflix offers scale, predictability, and reach without forcing Sony to build and maintain its own streaming empire. That's not Netflix surviving the market. That's Netflix becoming the market. This is where things get really interesting because moves like this don't just create winners. They reshuffle leverage. Netflix gains power, obviously. It now controls the post-theatrical life of movies from multiple major studios. That gives it influence over release strategies, marketing rhythms, and long-term audience discovery. Netflix isn't just a buyer anymore, it's infrastructure. Sony gains power in a different way. By not running its own streamer, Sony stays flexible. It avoids subscriber churn, tech cost, and platform fatigue. It focuses on making movies and lets Netflix handle the rest. That's a smart, disciplined position. Now, Universal gains stability. Its movies still flow through Peacock first, but Netflix becomes the reliable second act, the place where the films can actually find massive audiences. That matters more than ever in a crowded market. Now, let's talk about who loses leverage. Other streamers lose ground. Prime Video especially looks squeezed here. Once Netflix locks in pay-one dominance, competing for prestige titles becomes harder and more expensive. You're no longer negotiating from equal footing. Smaller studios and independents get caught in the middle. When one platform becomes the default destination, access narrows. That doesn't kill creativity, but it does change who gets visibility and how risk is assessed. And then there's the theatrical exhibitors. Netflix keeping a 45-day window sounds friendly, and it is compared to day and date, but make no mistake, Theatrical survives here under Netflix's terms, not the other way around. And that's the big shift. This is Netflix saying we'll support theaters, but we're setting the rules. What we're watching is Netflix completing its transition from distributor to institution. For years, Netflix broke the system. Now it's rebuilding one that works for them. Studios are tired, audiences are fragmented, and Wall Street wants clarity. Netflix is offering a model that says, make your movie, release it properly, and when it's done, we'll take it global. That's incredibly appealing in 2026. Is it risky? Sure. Is it controversial? Absolutely. But is it powerful? Without question. Netflix has crossed a line. It's no longer just a streaming service or a content buyer. It's becoming the central nervous system of the modern movie business. Ted Sarandos isn't reacting to the future. He's designing it. And whether Hollywood loves it or hates it, everyone else is now playing on Netflix's board. But the real question is for you. What do you guys think of the big moves that Netflix is making? Do you think it's good for Hollywood? Bad for Hollywood? Good for us as the consumer or not? Whatever it is you're thinking, drop it in the comments. I would love to know your thoughts. The nominees are officially in for the 98th Academy Awards, and there's a lot to unpack this year. The nominees across all 24 categories were announced live from the Academy's Samuel Goldwyn Theater in Los Angeles. This year also marks the debut of a new Oscar category for casting, expanding the awards slate and slightly reshaping the nominations breakdown. In total, there are 317 feature films that were eligible this year. 201 films qualified for Best Picture. Most categories feature 5 nominees, with Best Pictures capped at 10. The ceremony itself will take place on Sunday, March 15th at the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles, airing live on ABC and streaming on Hulu, with Conan O'Brien returning as host for the second year in a row. Now, here's where this year really starts to stand out. 2 films dominated the nominations conversation. Sinners, directed by Ryan Coogler, led the pack with 16 nominations, the most ever for a single film in Academy Awards history. One Battle After Another from Paul Thomas Anderson followed closely behind with 13 nominations, including major recognition across acting, directing, and writing categories. The Best Picture nominees are Begonia, F1, Frankenstein, Hamnet, Marty Supreme, One Battle After Another, The Secret Agent, Sentimental Value, Sinners, and Train Dreams. Now, on paper, it's a lineup that blends prestige filmmaking, genre experimentation, and somewhat unusually, films that actually found a broader audience. And that's where my reaction shifts. I've never really been a fan of the Oscars. I understand the importance of the Academy. I respect what the Oscars represent historically, but year after year, I've struggled to fully engage, mostly because the films that dominate nominations often feel like they're designed specifically to appeal to voters, not necessarily to moviegoers. And a lot of those movies are impressive. Some are even great, but they're not always watched, discussed, or lived with by the general audience. This year feels very different. For the first time in a long time, the nominations reflect movies people actually showed up for, movies that sparked conversation, rewatches, debates, and emotional reactions. And that starts at the top with Sinners. Now, let me start by walking through the Best Picture nominees I've actually seen. F1. F1 absolutely belongs on this list. This movie feels like classic Hollywood filmmaking, confident, polished, and audience-forward. If Top Gun Maverick brought back large-scale spectacle with purpose, F1 does the same thing, just in a different arena. Brad Pitt and Javier Bardem are the secret weapon here. Their chemistry feels authentic. You believe they've lived in this world their entire careers. Nothing about their performances feels like cosplay or surface-level research. What really impressed me, though, was the care given to every character, even the supporting ones. Everyone has a clear motivation, everyone has an arc, and that kind of craftsmanship really matters. And the soundtrack, oh, chef's kiss. The soundtrack deserves special recognition. Powered by Apple Music, I'm sure, and meticulously laid out to drive, see what I did there? The story and keep our heads bobbing all the way through. Now, this one is one of those movies where the sound design and music elevate everything else. If F1 won Best Picture, I'd be genuinely happy with that outcome. Now, Sinners. This was my favorite movie of 2025, and see it break the record for most Oscar nominations ever feels pretty surreal, and honestly, pretty validating. What makes Sinners work starts with character. Every person in the film is carefully written, clearly introduced, and emotionally grounded. Even the antagonist, who is unquestionably dangerous, is given a perspective you can understand. He doesn't see himself as the villain. He believes he's elevating humanity and destroying those that have persecuted people who are different. That always makes for a more compelling threat. The setting matters just as much. 1932 Mississippi, deep in the Jim Crow South, isn't just background texture, it's narrative pressure. You've got twin brothers, both black, both wealthy, both tied to organized crime. That combination creates constant tension. As an audience, you're excited by their confidence and terrified by the world they're navigating. And then there's the music. Again, chef's kiss. This is one of the most ambitious uses of music I've ever seen in film. Blues, spirituals, rock, hip-hop, Irish, and Celtic influences all blended into something that feels intentional, respectful, and powerful. It's not just a soundtrack. It's identity, culture, and storytelling. I've listened to this score more times than I can count, and it's introduced me to music I never would have explored otherwise, which is extremely rare for me because I listen to everything. Now, do I think Sinners will win every category it's nominated for? No. Do I think it should win Best Picture? Well, I really hope it does. Either way, it deserves the recognition it's receiving. There are still several Best Picture nominees I haven't seen yet, and I plan to watch all of them before the ceremony. Begonia, Frankenstein, Hamnet, Marty Supreme, One Battle After Another, The Secret Agent, Sentimental Value, and Train Dreams. I have no opinions yet, but I'll follow up with you guys once I've worked through them. This is the first time in years I've been genuinely interested in the Academy Awards. Not just aware of them, actually invested. For once, the Oscars feel aligned with what audiences are watching, discussing, and connecting with. And if this is the direction things are heading, I'm here for it. Now, I want to know what you guys think. Are you paying attention to the Oscars this year? Which nominees stood out to you? And how do you feel about Sinners making history? Drop down in the comments and let me know your thoughts. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for today's episode of Be Kind Rewind. You can find Be Kind Rewind on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or your favorite podcast app of choice. You can jump into the conversation on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok. Just search for @Be Kind Rewind Show. I really appreciate you guys being here, so until next time, bye-bye.